Not everyone's going to like hearing this, but some of you watching right now may have spent thousands on premium hearing aids, but still not be wearing the actual hearing aids that you've paid for. Now, I'm not saying that because they're counterfeit, nor because the technology is bad, but because if they haven't been physically fitted, acoustically verified, and properly optimized, you may only be wearing the shell of a premium hearing aid without them reaching their full potential. So, today I'm going to show you 4 ways in which premium hearing aids quickly become fake premium hearing aids, how to spot the warning signs, and the exact questions that you need to ask before you spend thousands, and what to do if you already have. In fact, I'll even throw in a checklist at the end of today's video to ensure that you've got the best out of your hearing aids. For context, I'm Matthew Allsop and I run the largest independent audiology practice in London by day, and by night I spend all of my time sharing information with the world looking to raise the bar in audiology. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I think that you should, and I have a lot to share with you. So press this button just down here. There is no question that we're living in an incredible era of hearing aid technology, and manufacturers are making some huge claims about the likes of artificial intelligence, speech clarity, plus hearing in background noise. For example, Phonak states that their Infinio Ultra Sphere hearing aids use a dedicated AI chip to separate speech from noise in real time, with claims of up to 35% reduced listening effort, and users being up to 3 times more likely to understand every word from any direction. Whilst at the same time, Oticon states that their Intent hearing aid can reduce sustained listening effort by 31%, reduce listening stress by 40%, and provide up to 45% better access to speech cues in complex environment. Signia are stating that with their integrated experience technology, it adapts 192,000 data points every second and adapts 1,000 times per second as conversations move around you in 360 degrees. ReSound state that their Vivia uses a DNN chip trained on 13.5 million spoken sentences and is up to 17 times more efficient than other leading hearing solutions using directionality and a DNN noise reduction setup, and that 64% of users experienced improved hearing in noisy situations. And then Starkey, this is going on forever, state that their Omega AI provides up to 28% improved speech intelligibility, and up to an 8 decibel signal to noise ratio improvement. And then finally, I promise this is the last one, Widex state that their Alert AI provides up to 26% better speech intelligibility, 95% improved speech and noise, 97% natural and clear sound, and up to 6 decibels higher output signal to noise ratio. Now, of course, these are all claims which are very exciting in my opinion, but there is one massive catch to all of this. Those results depend massively on how your hearing aids are fitted, because the manufacturer can build the best AI systems in the world, but if the dome is wrong, if the microphones are sitting at the wrong angle, if the hearing aid is under amplified, if the receiver is sliding out of your ear, or if no one has actually measured what your hearing aid is doing and how it's performing at your eardrum using real ear measurements, then you may think you've been sold a Phonak, Oticon, Starkey, Signia, Widex, or ReSound hearing aid. Did I say that all? Yeah, I did. But you're not necessarily wearing it the way that the manufacturers have done their research and the way that they've intended. You're wearing a compromised version of their technology. Now I'm going to stop you there because I can see how this is going to go in the comments beneath today's video. Before everybody gets their pitchforks out, this is not me saying that every large chain is bad and that every independent clinic is good. That would be nonsense. I will, however, say that every single online retailer out there is selling you a fake hearing aid. Hear me out. I've seen excellent work from audiologists in large chains, and I've seen poor work from independent clinics too. But I have seen a worrying number of patients come to see me after buying hearing aids elsewhere, often from very recognizable high street names, who have been told that this is as good as it gets. When in reality, the hearing aids were not the problem. The fitting of those hearing aids was. And because you have nothing to compare it to, for you it may be better than wearing no hearing aids, but it may be nowhere near reaching the full potential of that technology. I liken it to a Formula One car with the wrong tyres on. In fact, no, I don't. After what I've seen over the years, I liken it to a Formula One car with no tyres on whatsoever. It doesn't matter how good that engine is, if everything else hasn't been optimised properly, that car's not going anywhere. So today I'm going to show you the 4 most common ways that premium hearing aids are turned into fake hearing aids, fake versions of premium hearing aids. And building on what I was saying before, this isn't because the devices themselves are fake, but because the setup is fake. And without a decent setup, your hearing aid is not worth anything. So this is wild and perfect timing for today's video. Only this morning I saw a post on a big audiology Facebook forum with a hearing aid user sharing a story about how they'd been to buy some new Oticon Zeal hearing aids, and during the fitting process they'd asked the hearing care provider or audiologist why real ear measurements hadn't been performed, only to be told that the tech was so good that real ear measurements were no longer needed. In my opinion, this is just lazy audiology. The technology is not so good that verification is no longer necessary. Whoever you are, be better. So in my opinion, the first and biggest problem is hearing aids being fitted without the use of real ear measurements. Now, if you've watched this channel before, you know I talk a lot about real ear measurements. Not as much as Dr. Cliff, but I do talk about it a lot. And I'm going to keep talking about them too. Now, for your reference, if you're not familiar with real ear measurements or REMs, this is a process that the audiologist will perform when they're verifying how your hearing aids are functioning by placing a microphone close to your eardrum whilst your hearing aids are in place. They'll then play calibrated speech sounds through a speaker in front of you and measure the exact sound that your hearing aid is delivering. And this is when your hearing aids can be accurately adjusted, not just based on your hearing test results, but they will also incorporate the shape and size of your ear canals too. And believe it or not, I can have 2 patients, 4 patients, 8 patients with identical sets of hearing test results, but completely differently set hearing aids or differently programmed hearing aids based on the information that we obtain by taking these measurements. So is this just Dr. Cliff and I making it up? Well, the British Society of Audiology describes an in situ real ear measurement as the most direct method of verifying a hearing device fitting because it measures the hearing aid output in the ear canal. And in 2025, the National Board of Health in Denmark released a 55-page document around gold standard for hearing aid fittings, which includes the use of real ear measurements as being a legal requirement. So if your hearing aids are or were fitted without REMs, there is a chance that they're either underamplified, overamplified, missing important speech cues, or too sharp, too soft, too dull, or even not matching the prescription that's necessary to compensate for your hearing loss. And to be blunt, if you've bought expensive AI hearing aids, but they've just been programmed out of the box, I'd be pretty if I was you. Imagine buying a pair of glasses, you sit in the chair, they test your eyes, and they take a pair of lenses off the shelf and they say, put these on. These are roughly right for most people. Surely you would want your prescription tailored for your vision. Think about it, it's no different whatsoever. This one is huge, and so much so that I have an entire video dedicated to this subject because so little importance is put on the way that your hearing aid is coupled to your ear. And this is one of the most common issues that I see every single week. The second way that a premium hearing aid quickly becomes a fake premium hearing aid is when the wrong dome or mould is used on the end of it. Your hearing aid is not just the little computer behind your ear, obviously that's a very important part, but the bit that goes into your ear, I'm talking about the dome, the tip, the receiver, the mould and the venting, all completely transforms how your hearing aid will perform. Now, whilst open domes have their place, I personally very rarely fit them. If you have good low frequency hearing and most of your hearing loss is in the higher frequencies, an open fitting could be the right choice, but there are still alternatives out there. But if you need more power, more stability, better bass response, better speech and noise performance, or better control over sound leaking in and out of your ear canal, then a generic rubber dome might be the thing holding your hearing aids back. In fact, it's holding you back too. Because if background noise can travel around that dome, such as with an open fit, like I was talking about before, straight down your ear canal and hit your eardrum naturally, the hearing aid can't clean up that sound. So all of that incredible technology and that artificial intelligence built into your hearing aids is no longer valid. That is why you can have the best hearing aids in the world and still struggle in restaurants, restaurants if the acoustic setup is wrong. And this is the main reason that I am a huge fan of custom moulds. And when they're suitable, I put them on as many hearing aids as possible. They will allow your audiologist to control the fit, the seal, the vent size, the bass response, the amount of natural sound entering your ear canal, and the amount of amplified sound being retained too. So if that's what your hearing loss needs, then in my opinion, it is not an optional extra to have a custom made fitting on the end of your hearing aid. It is an essential part of the hearing aid fitting setup. And sadly, when I have patients come to see me with hearing aids that they've purchased elsewhere and they're really struggling, the incorrect choice of tip is one of the most common issues that I find. Imagine if something as basic as the length of wire coming over the top of your ear and into your ear canal can cause your hearing aids to underperform. Well, it can. Now, I know this sounds boring, but I promise to try and keep you entertained. On receiver and canal hearing aids, the hearing aid sits behind your ear and the receiver, essentially the speaker, sits inside your ear canal, with the wire connecting the two of them together, passing energy and information and ensuring a proper fit. Now, if that wire is too short, it can pull the receiver out of your ear canal during the course of the day, and in turn, this will change the insertion depth, which means that the hearing aids won't be in the same position that they were for when you had real ear measurements performed, if you're in the 30% of people that actually have real ear measurements performed. This creates a domino effect, therefore, changing the acoustics, the seal, the clarity, the noise reduction settings, and increases the chances of feedback too. All from a wire being a couple of millimeters too short. And then, if the wire is too long, it can sit too loosely or perhaps fall off your ear or move around. And then not only that, there's also microphone alignment. All modern receiver and canal hearing aids have two microphones, one facing backwards and then another facing forwards, which helps with directional processing and essentially hearing in background noise. If the hearing aid is sitting at the wrong angle because the wire length is wrong, the microphones may not be orientated the correct way that the system was designed. Too short and they'll point down, and too long and they'll be pointing up, all compromising on the performance of your amazing and incredible and expensive premium hearing aid technology. Now, this all sounds very extreme for something so minor, but I wouldn't be talking about this if I hadn't come across it a lot. The fourth thing that I'm highlighting today, which means that your hearing aids may not have been programmed as the manufacturers had intended, comes down to a very small piece of technology called a retention lock, which is also known as a sports lock, retention tail, or ear grip, whatever you want to call this tiny piece of plastic. Now, I know not everybody shares my passion for these tiny little tails, but I successfully fit them to 99% of my hearing aid fittings, those that don't have custom tips, that is. And I know it looks insignificant, but for many receiver and canal fittings, it is one of the easiest ways to improve consistency by keeping your receiver locked in the position that it was originally set up. Think about it. If your hearing aid was programmed with the receiver sitting at one depth, but then during the day it gradually works its way out, then you're no longer wearing the same fitting, and this therefore is one of the simplest and cheapest ways to improve the effectiveness of your hearing aids in the click of your fingers, in an instant. And just for the record, I don't get commission for global sales of retention tails. I just want to clear that up before we move on. So for clarity, and I'm being very careful when I say this, I am not saying that large chains or independent clinics not adhering to this level of standard are intentionally scamming people, although everybody's been trained to be able to do these things properly. But I am saying that if a business model is built around speed, if it's built around volume, short appointment times, quick fittings, limited follow-ups, then something has to give. And if the price of a pair of hearing aids sounds too good to be true, it normally is, because the optimization is the part that gets squeezed. When you buy a pair of hearing aids, you're not just buying the hearing aid, you're buying the expertise of the person programming those hearing aids too. So finally, if you're about to buy hearing aids, or if you already have hearing aids and you're not happy, here are the questions that I would ask. Question number 1, what does the assessment entail? Hearing aids are only as good as the information that's put into them, and I would make sure that your assessment includes, but is not limited to, pure tone audiometry, both air conduction and bone conduction, including masking where necessary, tympanometry, speech testing, a lifestyle assessment questionnaire, and a medical history. Question number 2, will you perform real ear measurements at the fitting? If the answer is no, run a mile. Question number 3, how will you decide whether I need open domes, closed domes, power domes, or custom molds? Question number 4, will you check the physical fit, including the wire length and receiver position? Question number 5, do you have a comprehensive follow-up process? Now, if you're watching this video and thinking, oh no, I've already bought hearing aids and I don't think that any of this happened, or even part of this happened, do not panic. This does not necessarily mean that your hearing aids are bad. It may simply mean that they just need optimizing. Book a follow-up and ask for REMs, ask whether the dome or mold is still appropriate, ask whether the receiver wire is the right length, ask whether a retention lock would help, ask whether the feedback manager has reduced the clarity of your hearing aids, ask whether your hearing aids are actually matching your prescription, and if you feel dismissed or ignored, then go and get a second opinion. Now, getting your hearing aids fitted properly is only half of the battle, because you still need to make sure that you're choosing the right hearing aids for you. So if you want to know which models I would actually recommend, check this video out.